Hello everyone and welcome back to Microsoft Dynamics 365 or CRM interview questions and answers video series. In today's video we will see what is late binding and early binding programming in Dynamics 365. So basically in today's agenda, first of all we will see an overview about what is late binding and early binding programming with respect to Dynamics 365, and then I will show you a live practical demo how you can use late binding and early binding in Dynamics 365 while working with C# code, and then I will show you how you will choose or in which scenarios you can choose which style. Is there any specific guidelines for that? And lastly we will see what's next. That means where we will cover which topics that you want us to cover in our next videos. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Abhishek Doria and you are watching Dynamics Academy YouTube channel. So let's get started. Subscribe to Dynamics Academy and press the bell icon on your YouTube app to never miss a video from Dynamics Academy. So first of all, I will give you an overview about what is late binding and early binding with respect to Dynamics 365. So when you are working with organization services assemblies, you can choose either of two types, which is late binding or early binding programming. Basically, the difference between early and late binding programming is with respect to type conversion. So let us now understand what is late binding. The late binding checks the types only when the object is created or an action is performed on the type. So basically, the type of a variable or type of an object you will not come to know until runtime. So you will not come to know the type of the variables and objects until runtime. While in case of early binding provides compile time checking of all types so that there is no implicit casts occur. So you will be able to know the types of the objects and variables at the compile time itself. So you do not need to implicit typecast anything. So let us now understand late binding in detail. Late binding programming uses entity class and you need to refer to entities and attributes using their logical name property values. For example, let's say if you want to get the logical name of that entity, then you can use entity metadata.logical name. Or if you want to get the attribute name, then you can find using attribute metadata.logical name. And since the relationship do not have logical name property, so to retrieve the relationship name, you can use relationship metadata base.schema name property. Let me now give you a glimpse of how late binding program looks like. So here you can see you have declared a variable called account using entity class, where you have passed the account as a parameter. Account is an entity within your Dynamics 365, and let's say if you want to set the name of that account, you can use this syntax. You have to use this syntax where you need to know the attribute logical name. You need to know each and every attribute that you are using or that this particular entity is having, and if you are setting that property, then you need to use that property or you need to know the name of that particular property. This is an example of a late bound program. Name is a type of string or a boolean, or whether it is number or datetime, you cannot determine while looking at the code, right? But you need to know while setting up the values of these particular attributes. Otherwise it may fail. If you are setting a boolean value to your string attribute, then it may fail. So in this case, you need to know the type of the attributes that you are using in your code properly. So having said that, let us now understand what are the basic advantages of this particular style of programming. The main advantage for late bound programming is that you do not need to generate the classes or include the generated file within your project, because sometimes the generated file can become quite larger. That's the main advantage, that you do not need to do any extra specific activities in order to generate the early bound classes. But at the same time, it has some sort of disadvantages as well. So let us now have a closer look of those disadvantages. The number one disadvantages you have is you do not get the compile time validation of names of entities, attributes and relationships. That means, let's say if you have forgotten or you have misspelled some of the names of the attributes within your code, still your code will compile properly and it will fail only at the runtime. So that is one of the biggest disadvantage. And lastly, the other disadvantage is that you need to know the names of the attributes and relationships in metadata while writing your code itself. So you need to know the types and the names correctly while writing your code, because you will not get any sort of assistance using the IntelliSense from Visual Studio. But in case of early binding programming, you will get some sort of IntelliSense from your Visual Studio itself. So let us now understand what is early binding program. So early bound programming requires that you first generate a set of classes based on the metadata for a specific organization using code generation tool, which in CRM case it is CrmSvcUtil.exe. Many of you would be knowing this, but still there are some users who don't know how to use this utility. So in today's video, I will show you how to generate these early binding classes and add into your project as well, and from where you can find this tool and how to use it properly. So all these things we are going to cover in the demo. And once you have generated the early bound entity classes using the code generation tool, then you will enjoy a better experience while you are writing a code, because classes, attributes and relationship all uses the schema name property values. For example, in case of if you want to find the entity name, then you can still use the schema name property at all three places, whether it is entity, attribute or relationship metadata. Let me now show you themes of early bound classes as well. So now you can see I am declaring an account variable using the account class itself. Earlier I had to use entity class. Now since I have generated the early bound classes, now I can directly use the account type class, and I can directly use account dot. Once I put the dot, then it will list out all the fields and attributes into Visual Studio IntelliSense, and I can set the properties directly. And here you can get the type of the attribute as well. So it would be very easy and convenient while you are writing the code using early bounding classes. So let's look at some of the advantages. You can simply instantiate the class and let the IntelliSense in Visual Studio provide the names of the properties and relationships. At the same time, some of the disadvantages are you need to generate early bound classes every time you make any customization changes, and sometimes these generated files can become quite large. So these are the two main disadvantages for this style of programming. So having said that, let me now show you a step-by-step demo of both late binding and early binding programming. So friends, this is my Visual Studio, and for today's demo I have created a project of console application type. This process you already know how you can create a project of console application, and you need to add the required references, and from where you can get the CRM SDK and XRM SDK and tooling connector references. You can get it from the SDK. So you need to have three important prerequisites before you start practicing this step-by-step demo. Number one prerequisites is you must have a downloaded Dynamics 365 SDK in your local PC. So if you want to know how you can download and install the new version 9.0 SDK, then you can watch the video whose link is given on the top of the screen. Once you download it, you will be able to add these references. I once again emphasize that you need to download SDK locally, because you will be requiring the SDK when you want to work with the early binding classes, because as we have seen in previous step that you need to generate some early binding classes with the help of one tool called CrmSvcUtil. So that utility you will get only in the SDK itself. So you must install the Dynamics 365 version 9.0 SDK. The next set of requirement is you must have a trial instance to practice it, or if you have a on-premise instance then it is fine, but at least you should have a Dynamics 365 instance to connect with in your code. So if you want to set up a Dynamics 365 trial instance, for that also we have prepared a video. You can check out the link given on the top of your screen. And lastly, you must know how to connect to your Dynamics 365 trial instance using C# code. So for that also we have prepared a step-by-step video of how you can connect to your Dynamics 365 using C#. This is my program.cs file of that particular project, where very first thing which I am doing is I am establishing a connection using the connection string and CrmSvc client. So I am not going to explain it once again. If you want to check in detail, you can click the video link given on the top of your screen. There I have explained step by step how you can connect and understand this code properly. So this line of code is for the connecting to my Dynamics 365 instance. And next, if the connection is successful, then what I am printing one message called connection successful. And then the very first method I am navigating is late binding demo. So this is my late binding demo. So here you can see I am first of all declaring an object of an entity class, and in that entity class constructor I am passing a string parameter called account. This account is nothing but the logical entity logical name of the account, which is present in my Dynamics 365 trial instance. Once I have declared that object, then I need to set the attributes or the parameters or the field values that you want to set for that particular record which you are going to create. So you need to know the logical name of the entity, logical or the schema name of all the attributes that you are going to use, as well as not only the name but even the type of the attributes which you are using, because here you will not be able to know the type of this particular attributes while writing the code. So since the name attribute is of string type, I need to pass the string value. Again, credit on hold is another boolean type or two option set value in my Dynamics 365 instance, so I am passing false here. Last on hold time is a date time value, so I need to pass the value in date time format. Again, this latitude and longitude I'm passing into double format. Again, number of employees is an integer, while the revenue field is a money type. So I need to make sure the type conversion should be proper while writing the code itself, because when if I make any mistake in the conversion or in the spelling of the attributes or entity, the code would compile correctly, but while running the code will fail. At the time of runtime only the code will fail. It is not going to validate on compile time. So that's the classic characteristic of late binding programming. So let me now run this code and let's see if it is successfully getting created in the system or not. So first you can see it has printed a message called connection successful, and lastly it has given me a message called record created successfully, and at the end I am appending the new record GUID which has been created. So let us now go there to my Dynamics 365 instance and check if any such account with this name has been created today or not. This is my Dynamics 365 trial instance. So I'm navigating to the companies. In this trial instance, I have renamed the accounts as companies, the display name of the accounts as companies. So now you can see a new record has been created called Contoso, and you can check the other informations as well. You can check the annual revenue, number of employees, owner is the user through which we have created this record, type is customer, other details you can find here. We have set credit on hold is no. So now you can see the record is getting created successfully. This is how you can run the late binding. So let me now show you one more thing. Let's say if I'm making a mistake in the name attribute of this one, so what will happen? So whether this program is going to fail while compiling the code itself, or it will fail at the runtime. So if it is failing at the compile time, then it will not build successfully itself. Let me now run this. I have deliberately made a mistake, and let's see if it is compiling successfully or building successfully. Now you can see the code is compiled successfully and it is running properly, and it has even given this message connection successful. So it has not validated while compiling the code itself. And now you can see it has given me an error message when I'm creating this record. It is showing me clearly account entity does not contain attribute with name equals NAM. So this is the deliberate spelling mistake which I have made. There is no such attribute with name called NAM. So that's why it is getting failed here. So this is one of the drawback of this particular style of programming, which is you will not be able to know that you have made any mistake while compiling the code itself. So I'm stopping it again, and let me now fix this back. So once I fix this back, it will run successfully. So having said that, let us now see another style of programming called early binding. I'm commenting this and I'm showing you early binding demo. But as we have seen earlier, that for using early binding, you need to first generate the early bind classes. So how you can generate those early binding classes? So to do that, you need to use an exe which is supplied in your SDK folder. So let me now show you how you can generate those early binding classes. So to generate that, you need to first navigate to the Dynamics 365 SDK. I have downloaded my Dynamics 365 SDK into this particular folder, and here you can see core tools. The moment you navigate to the core tools folder of your Dynamics 365 SDK, you will see an utility called CrmSvcUtil. You need to run this exe or this utility along with some specified parameters. So what are those parameters? Let me now show you how you can run this. You can follow this official Microsoft Dynamics 365 documentation, which tells you how you can generate early binding classes for your organization service, right? So you can follow this process step by step here, and you can copy this example, and you need to replace the parameters, URL parameters and username and password parameters with that of yours. First of all, I have copied this, and now we'll make changes to these parameters. You need to change the URL and specify the output file, means at which path you want to generate the output file and with what name. Here you need to specify the output file location and the name of the generated CS file, which you need to include into your project once it is generated. So here you can give path along with the output file name. If you give only the file name, it will store the file where the CrmSvcUtil is located. So let me now change this file name to, let's say, early bound classes, and you need to pass your username, password. If you want to use any namespace, you can specify the namespace, or you can leave blank as well. You can remove this parameter, and you can specify the service context name also. If you specify the namespace here, then you need to, while adding this class, you need to specify using statement as this particular namespace. So that is it. Then what you need to do is you go to your run command, cmd, navigate to the folder where your CrmSvcUtil is hosted. cd, copy the path here, paste. Now I'm navigated to the actual location here. Now copy this complete line of code and hit enter. So once you hit enter, it will take a little bit time, and you can see it has started generating early bind classes. Once it is generated, it will give a message here. So now you can see a message clearly written that the code has been written to this particular path and this particular generated CS file. You can navigate to that path and check whether this file is present, and once it is present, you need to add this same CS file into your project. Now you can see it has generated an early bound classes.cs file. You can see it is generated today only, and it will be present where your CrmSvcUtil is located. So now what I need to do, I need to add this class into my console application. I open my Visual Studio back. Now you need to right click and add existing item. Here you need to navigate once again, navigate to same location where your newly generated class is present. Select that and click add. So once a class has been added to your project, in order to use that, you need to use using statement. Using my.org. This my.org is nothing but the namespace which you have defined while generating your early bind class. Now I navigate to my early binding demo function. In this method, now you can see I am declaring the same object called account, but this time I am not using the entity class, but instead of that, once I have added the generated classes and the required namespaces, I can directly create an object of account class. And simply now what I can use is I do not need to remember the attributes which are present in that particular class. It will directly take it up from the IntelliSense itself. Let's say if I want to set the name, then if I type name account dot, and now you can see my Visual Studio itself has picked up the required IntelliSense. I want to set this into the name parameter. The moment you type, the regular IntelliSense will work. And at the same time, here you can see the type of the attribute as well. So since the credit on hold is boolean type, here you can see it is of type boolean, it is of type string, this is of type datetime. So this comes very handy once you start writing your code. It is highly recommended that you use early binding classes to avoid the mistakes while programming the code. So I'll just change the name here, early binding demo. So I have changed the name to Contoso early binding demo. So let me now run this program. First it is printed record connection successful, and next it is printed the correct message that record created successfully. It is a copy paste mistake, early binding, and after that it is printing the record quit. So let me now stop and we'll navigate to my Dynamics 365 trial instance and verify whether the record created or not. Once again I am navigated back to my Dynamics 365 trial instance. I'm opening all accounts, and here you can see a new record with name early binding demo has been created successfully. So this is how you can use early binding in your Dynamics 365 programming. Let's say if I do the same mistake here, if I deliberately do not use this particular attribute name correctly, then my Visual Studio instance itself is started giving me an error warning. So it is telling me that account does not contain any attribute or any definition with NAM. So if, let's say, even though if I'm building or even if I'm running, it is not going to run, it will fail at the time of compiling itself. So build will not get successfully and it is thrown an error. Build itself is failed. So this is how it becomes very much handy when you are using early binding in your Dynamics 365 coding. So having seen the demo, let us now see how you can choose whether to use late binding or early binding in your Dynamics 365 project. We'll see the basic differences between both early binding and late binding. So in case of early binding, you can verify entity, attribute and relationships names at the compile time. But in case of late binding, there will be no compile time verification of entity, attributes and relationship names. So you need to know the correct names of entity, attributes and relationships in case of late binding. The another difference is you must generate entity classes when you are working with early bounding classes, but there is no such requirement, or you do not need to generate the entity classes for late bounding programming. Early binding provides a better IntelliSense support for your Visual Studio, but there is no such IntelliSense support in case of late bound programming. So in case of early bounding programming, you have to do less, but the code would be more readable. But in case of late binding, you have to work more, but the code will be less readable. While the another difference you might need to keep in mind is that early bound programming are a slightly less performant than that in case of late bound programming. But still, we recommend you to use early bound programming because that will help you to write clean code and more readable code. You can see the clear-cut differences between early binding and late binding programming style, but it depends really on the developer which style they want to use. And at the same time, you can even mix both early and late bounding programming in your code itself. Because all the generated class inherit from the entity class which use late bound programming, you can work with entities, attributes and relationships not defined within the classes as well. By that what we mean is, so once you generate the classes in case of early binding programming, all these generated classes will inherit from the entity class itself. So entity class is nothing but a late binding programming. So this is an example which shows how you can mix early and late binding methods using organization service context. So first of all, I am declaring my context, creating an organization service context here. Then I am declaring late binding test account. And within test account, I am passing two late binding attributes, name and email address. At the same time, I am adding to account set. Account set is nothing but the generated early bound class, and then I am making the save changes here itself. So this is the way you can mix early and late binding. While other way you can mix is, let's say if you are declaring early binding variable and if you forgot to regenerate the classes after adding one attribute to that entity, you can still use that attribute in your code using the late binding programming. So here I am using the name parameter. The first account.name is nothing but the early bind attribute, while the sample custom boolean is a new field or a new attribute that I have added to the account class, but I have not regenerated the entire early binding class. I'm simply using in my code directly the newly generated attribute, and then I can use service.create in simple manner. This code is also perfectly okay, and it will run without any issue. So these two ways you can mix early and late binding while coding your Dynamics 365 program. So having seen this, let us now see what's next with respect to early and late binding programming. So if you still have any queries or concerns, please put them in the comment box below. We'll happy to answer all your queries, and at the same time, please help us in deciding the next video. If you want us to prepare a video on Power Platform, then type Power Platform in the comment box of this video. Or else, if you want to know about the Dynamics 365 security, then type Dynamics 365 security in the comment box of this video. If you want to connect with us, then you can find the links of all social media platforms in the description box. Especially you would like to connect with us on the WhatsApp group, where the people are actively participating and posting their queries, where they will get live support and feedback. So having said that, I end this video. And so if you have learned something new out of this video, then please like, share and subscribe to Dynamics Academy, and also press the bell icon so that you will never miss any update whenever we release a new video to our Dynamics Academy YouTube channel. And on that note, I end this video and take your leave. Hope to see you all in the next video. Till then, bye bye and take care. And once again, thank you for your time.